This is India at 9, broadcasting live from the CNN IBN headquarters in New Delhi.
Good evening, you're with India at 9 this Friday evening. I'm Anubha Bhonsle. Let's get straight to our headlines. Delhi University falls in line, scraps the 4-year undergraduate program. The Vice-Chancellor asks colleges to start admissions for the 3-year courses as soon as possible, but not everyone is happy. Governors can be questioned while in office but not prosecuted. The government's top law officer, Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi, reverses the opinion of the previous dispensation. On cue, the CBI questions West Bengal Governor M.K. Narayanan as a witness in the Augusta Westland case. Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan clarifies he isn't advocating a ban of sex education in school, but says it should be without vulgarity and be culturally acceptable. Fidelity over condoms, and now that sex education clarification. We'll be looking at many aspects on the talking point debate on India at 9. Also in the headlines, the Home Minister rules out talks with Maoist forces fighting Naxals to get incentives. These decisions taken at a meeting with Naxal-hit states. This news came in early this morning. 14 people are dead in an explosion in a GAIL pipeline near the ONGC refinery in East Godavari in Andhra Pradesh. Not 10 kilometers, but a 2-kilometer no construction zone around the Okhla Bird Sanctuary in Delhi. The Environment Ministry is seeking views from Uttar Pradesh, Haryana and Delhi after the Green Tribunal stayed construction in these areas. And the Italian defender who was bitten by Suarez says the 4-month ban on him is excessive. The Uruguayan striker also loses a sponsorship deal. Okay, but first tonight, the week-long deadlock between Delhi University and the University Grants Commission, or the UGC, has finally come to an end. Delhi University has decided to roll back the 4-year undergraduate course and admit students under the 3-year undergraduate course. Not everyone is happy. Admissions already delayed are likely to begin next week. Meenakshi Upriti is wrapping up a day of action.
Celebrations erupted as the week-long impasse between Delhi University and the UGC finally ended today, with the Vice-Chancellor agreeing to scrap the controversial 4-year course. The move bringing relief to thousands of students who have been aspiring to get a seat in the Delhi University. The clarification came after the UGC asked the university to clear its stand on the 4-year undergraduate program. The Vice-Chancellor says,
in line with the UGC's decision, the university has decided to roll back FYUP. Consequently, the admission process shall be conducted.
The decision was welcomed by most principals who sought clarification from the VC about starting the admission process.
I'm greatly relieved that this avoidable impasse has come to an end, and that the students who are aspiring to join the university are spared.
But not all are happy. Students already enrolled in FIUP are in a fix.
TU promised us that they'll give a 4-year BTech degree. Now they're saying 3 years. So this is a complete cheat and we are not going to accept it.
We want BTech to be retained, but we want a clear statement. Till now we have not got any clear statement. We want a clear answer.
The HRD minister finally broke her silence on the issue.
My appeal is this, that within the ambit of the law, this is the time for statesmanship which will lead to resolution.
But the Congress hit out on the government for interfering with the university's autonomy.
Authorities have not done a better job of ensuring that whatever disagreements they may have on policy matters, that they should be resolved in such a way that students are not affected.
The 12-member committee which has been formed to look into the admission procedure is expected to give its report to the Delhi University by Monday. But certainly the end of the standoff between UGC and Delhi University has come as a huge sense of relief for those aspiring a seat in the university, as at least now the admissions are expected to begin soon. With camera person Dipinder Singh in New Delhi, Meenakshi Upriti.
Okay, now to another UPA government decision revised. The Attorney General has said that governors can be questioned while they are in office. This is the Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi, who has effectively reversed the former Solicitor General's opinion. The former SG had said that governors can only be questioned once they are out of office. The top law officer of this government saying that a governor can only be prosecuted after quitting office. The CBI had questioned West Bengal Governor M.K. Narayanan earlier in the day as a witness over the Augusta Westland chopper deal. Goa Governor B.V. Vanchu's name has also been linked to that chopper deal. And of course, Kerala Governor Sheila Dikshit faces allegations in the Commonwealth Games scam. Pallavi Ghosh has more.
In yet another overturn of a UPA government's decision, the Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi has actually given an opinion to the government saying that the governors while in office can be prosecuted. Now this is extremely significant. What it essentially does mean that sitting governors, especially appointed by the UPA like Vanchu, the Goa Governor, M.K. Narayanan, the Bengal Governor, as well as the Kerala Governor Sheila Dikshit can actually be investigated as far as the scams are concerned. The Goa Governor and the Bengal Governor's name have already been thrown up as far as the Augusta Westland deal is concerned, and Sheila Dikshit's name has often cropped up as far as the CWG scam is concerned. Remember, during the UPA's time, the then Solicitor General Mohan Parasaran had actually given an opinion saying that the governors can neither be prosecuted nor be investigated while they are in office. This overturning of decision does give the right to the government to investigate these governors while they are in office. However, the prosecution will have to wait till they demit office. Extremely significant decision and an opinion which has been given by the Attorney General to the government.
Well, tragic news that came in early this morning. 14 people are dead and 15 injured after an explosion at a Gas Authority of India pipeline in the East Godavari district. This was a fire that broke out in an 18-inch pipeline off GAIL near an ONGC refinery complex. The explosion caused damage to nearby houses, shops and coconut plantations. 20 fire tenders were pressed onto the site. A report has now been sent to the Union Home Ministry. The Prime Minister has announced an additional ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees. ONGC has shut its Andhra gas field for now.
जो सारे प्राथमिक काम घटने के बाद जो प्राथमिक काम उसी में हम लोग जुटे हैं, जिला प्रशासन भी जुटी है, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी उसमें चिंता प्रकट किए हैं, आंध्र प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री भी संयोगवशात हम लोगों को मिलके यहाँ गए थे। तो सारा विषय पे हम गंभीरता पिछले जो 2-3 घंटे में हम कर पाए, ये हमारी प्रायोरिटी है, वहां पहुंचे, जानकारी ले और उस घटना को संभालें।
Now, the top brass of the government and officials from Naxal-affected states met today for a strategy meeting. Sources saying the government has decided it will not hold talks with Naxals, but will be adopting a balanced approach. New special forces like the Greyhounds will be raised in Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Odisha. The Home Ministry has suggested a 4-pronged approach to tackle Naxals. The Home Ministry will also now lead in micromanaging road construction in some of the Naxal-hit areas. Well, those pictures on your screen of Congress workers protesting in Bhopal. They are demanding the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan's resignation in the Professional Examination Board scam. The government is standing by him so far. Home Minister Rajnath Singh today saying that there was simply no need for Shivraj Singh Chauhan to step down. The Chief Minister and his family have been accused of manipulating the selection process for government jobs conducted by the Madhya Pradesh Professional Examination Board. In the National Herald acquisition case, where a Delhi court has summoned Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, the Congress will be appealing the matter in a higher court. Abhishek Manu Singhvi will be representing the Gandhis in court. The two are facing allegations of setting up a front company, Young Indian, to acquire the Associated Journals Limited, the publisher of the now defunct National Herald. The court has found prima facie evidence against Sonia and Rahul Gandhi and other Congress leaders and has asked them to appear in court on the 7th of August. The Maharashtra government's plans for 16% reservation for Marathas ahead of state elections is now in court. A PIL has been filed in the Bombay High Court by activist Ketan Tirotkar. The PIL says that Marathas are not a caste but a linguistic group and that they are a dominant community and not backward. The Bombay High Court will be hearing that matter tomorrow. This is the Environment Ministry that has sought the opinion of states on the National Green Tribunal order against buildings in the Greater Noida region. Opinion of Uttar Pradesh, Delhi and Haryana governments have been sought. The ministry is actually mooting a 2-kilometer radius of an eco-sensitive zone as opposed to a 10-kilometer radius zone that was proposed by the National Green Tribunal. And the first batch of pilgrims have started the Amarnath Yatra early this morning from the base camp in Jammu. Snow has forced authorities to avoid the Pahalgam route for the moment, but the Yatra will be on from Baltal. State Tourism Minister Ghulam Ahmed Mir today flagged off over 3,000 pilgrims were participating in the first batch. Okay, before we head on to our talking point, you've heard of the spate of controversies. Fidelity over condoms when it comes to AIDS prevention, and then a statement from his blog where the health minister said, and I'm quoting him now, that a ban on so-called sex education is necessary. Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan has been at the center of these two controversies. In a statement released from the United States, the minister now says sex education is necessary, but without vulgarization and without culturally objectionable symbols. Sahil Mengani has that story.
Whenever we come to know about these patient lying in the hospital with HIV virus.
Our new health minister Dr. Harshvardhan finds these chapters on sex education a bit uneasy. In a blog written just a few months back, he questioned the manner of sex education being taught in schools. He said, and I quote, "Value education will be integrated with course content as per order of Honorable Supreme Court in 2002. So-called sex education to be banned, yoga to be made compulsory." The blog now being recirculated has landed Harshvardhan in a spot.
Nothing should be banned. A ban is a restriction, is a limitation. You ban anything from anybody and people are ready to violate it.
Well, it's such a disgrace that a union minister has passed such a comment.
There are so many cases of rapes and other things, so I can discuss it with my parents openly if it is taught in school.
The issue being raked up just a day after Narendra Modi completed 1 month in power was quickly lashed onto by the Congress.
अगर भारत के स्वास्थ्य मंत्री इस तरह के ख्याल रखते हैं तो ये तो बिल्कुल माध्यमिक ख्याल योग के ख्याल हैं.
Faced with all-round criticism, Harshvardhan issued a clarification. He said, and I quote, "Crudity and graphic representation of culturally objectionable symbols as manifested in the UP's so-called sex education program cannot be called sex education. Every education system must strive to have an ideal curriculum, and to that extent, my stand is valid." After his statement on usage of condoms, Dr. Harshvardhan has stoked another controversy, facing criticism not just from the schools but also from students and their parents, who are disappointed that such a statement has come from none other than the health minister himself, who also happens to be a doctor. With Vijay Deepak Kumar in New Delhi, this is Sahil Murli Meghani.
Okay, and that report takes us straight to our talking point tonight on India at 9. Remember that first controversy over fidelity over condoms, and now that clarification coming in on sex education. Now, well, needless to say, it's a debate that has many, many layers and many, many stakeholders, all of them joining us here on our India at 9 talking point panel. There's Onika Mehrotra, the principal of a school, a very important stakeholder. Lata Nair, she's representing the Parents-Teacher Association, joining us from Mumbai. Dr. Jitendra Nagpal, he's a senior consultant psychiatrist at Vimhans, but is also an author of a very important chapter on sex education at the NCERT. Anjali Gopalan, founder and executive director of the NAS Foundation. Rahul Ishwar is joining us from Trivandrum, author and activist. There's also Bashiruddin Sharki. He's representing the Students Islamic Organization, and Onir, a filmmaker who's made many wonderful films on AIDS and same-sex relationships. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me here on India at 9 Talking Point. Let me begin with a quote that are actually coming from Dr. Harshvardhan as a clarification of sorts. He says sex education is necessary, but without the vulgarization oblique the crudity. He's further added that all countries are packing in pedagogy that is scientific and culturally acceptable with values. Anything that's abrasive to common sensibility should be discarded and perhaps replaced by consensually accepted learning processes and values. Anjali Gopalan, let me start with you. On the face of it, many are actually saying that this rationale is accepted. It's not a ban on sex education, but it's a fine-tuning that the health minister believes is needed.
No. How is he when you're talking about fine-tuning, what are you thinking about? Are we now going to say that are we not going to talk openly about issues with our young people? Don't they have the right to get information? Are we going to again start sweeping things under the carpet? With great difficulty, we've got some modicum of sex education in place. And by the way, most schools don't run them. But to me, what is frightening is that we seem to have come around full circle, and here we have a doctor who is the health minister today telling us, giving us the moral and the whole language around morality and really making me feel that now the time has come when we have to realize that we have to ensure that our young people are not going to get all kinds of infections and die just because we as adults are so scared to talk to them openly about these issues.
Okay.
Somewhere it stems from a fear that if we talk openly about sex, everyone's going to become sexually active. Which is not true. Studies have constantly shown that it's not true.
You know, we'll come to this debate about two important points that you're making, that how sex education got confused with morality, and really youngsters are getting sexually active at a far younger age than before. But Jitendra Nagpal, I remember you coming on the panel when that adolescent education program in its original form actually ran into a lot of rough weather. There were explicit terms, or many people found them explicit, like arousal, masturbation, intercourse, teenage pregnancies. In its current form, what is sex education really about, and how sanitized is sex education already in our schools?
Well, I'm happy you remember that dialogue long back. And also, let me reiterate that down the memory lane, it is that time, yes, it was about a toolkit, a training manual and a group of books which were in the schooling system across many states in the country, which had a misrepresentation of the human body, and to some degree a lot of crudity of the line diagrams and the pictorial representation, which needed a public opinion, and it was rightly discontinued by a lot of backlash. But now I wish to convey to the Honorable Minister also that we all agree there is no crudity, there is no symbolic representation of any vulgarization in current any material or any training program across the country, and we need to appreciate that the departure from conventional nomenclature of sex education needs to be taken up. We should not get caught up in the traditional chaos of sex being equated with the sexual act. It is no more ever to be done, because it is going to send wrong messages across to 60 crores of young people in our country. And we know that adolescents constitute 25% of the Indian population. For them, we need empowerment of the right information from the right source and the right people. And schools are the best platform to disseminate more authentic information, a dialogue at the right time. And sex education is about adolescent education. There is a national adolescent education program which has its content, methodology and the social context and age appropriate curriculum sensitive to the cultural needs. I think we need to look into these things before we pass statements which can be detrimental to the understanding of the youth.
So Dr. Nagpal, when Dr. Harshvardhan is saying that the so-called sex education that was done during the UPA tenure is really not sex education, you're possibly saying he's been incorrect in his assessment of what is being taught as sex education as far as curricula in schools are concerned.
I think what I understand now from what is being discussed, I call it discussion and a dialogue with young people. It's not about tutoring them or instructing them, because interactive participatory discussion with young people is required, and it is child rights. It's a human rights about helping young people to tell us what do they want to learn in a changing, rapidly changing society. Talking about gender sensitivity, talking about the self-respect and self-esteem about the body and the mind, the good touch and the bad touch, the process of growing up, the dilemmas and the confusions about what happens to me and my body at the time of puberty, I think it's a human rights issue.
True.
And if we hide it under the carpet, we are doing a chaos for our younger generation for tomorrow. And if they want to know about what is the right contraception at the right time in life, I think they need to be told.
Fair enough.
I would
think
suggest
Dr.
that, yes, you said rightly that we need to depart from the nomenclature of sex education.
Depart from the nomenclature, and I think you've put it really well as to the different aspects that sex education actually consists of, and not really what Dr. Harshvardhan seems to be suggesting, even in his clarification to that blog. Lata, I want to bring you in because sex education has always been such a controversial topic, and the recipients, in a sense, I mean, the parents are also stakeholders in some sense, have really been wary or perhaps squeamish about their children getting sex education. In your experience, how open have children been, how open have parents been to the topic of sex education in schools?
Parents here are not at all open. I mean, even now they are still in the you can say the 19th or the 20th century. They don't mind watching all the soaps that are there along in the TV with the children, but when it comes to sex education, they don't even try to educate a little bit to the child, because here we are dealing not with big ones. We are associated with school children.
True.
School children, when we say school, they start right from the age of 3. So when you are like, you have these you know, in the things that happen in the school bus, and you have with the staff and all those things. So how do you teach that child? So here it is not, I mean, like what Mr. Harshvardhan said, that sex should not be taught. But then we are not teaching sex as such. It's just that how do you know whether this person is right, or whether he is really
a good touch, bad touch,
not the person to be trusted with.
I think, Lata, I'm going to take your point, the initial part of your comment where you said that parents really have also not been comfortable. Anjali, a quick response from you before I go on to my other panelists. The fact is, this is a controversial topic, and in sort of our social moorings, we really don't talk about sex openly, even at home. Is there, my question about fine-tuning was only to the point that does there need to be that fine-tuning, or as Dr. Nagpal is suggesting, our nomenclature has already been sanitized and our nomenclature is already holistic?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Nagpal, and I think when we talk about parents being squeamish, let me tell you, one of the things we have done very successfully is actually worked with parents, and when we have discussed with them what we would be discussing with kids in school, we found a very positive response from parents. And invariably I've had parents tell me, oh my God, I wish I had known this when I was my son's age or my daughter's age. So I think it's also how we broach the subject which becomes really critical.
True. Okay, let me now get in voices of two people who I think have been staunch opposers of sex education, and perhaps also side with Dr. Harshvardhan's earlier analogy of fidelity over condoms. Rahul Ishwar, you've been listening to all our panelists. Some of them have worked very actively in this field, have helped draft the curriculum perhaps of sex education. Do you find any merit in their argument? Are you convinced at all that they are broaching the subject of sex effectively, sensitively?
Anubhaji, 50 years back in India, the word sex was a sin. 50 years later, for left liberals like Anjali Gopalanji, ethics has become a sin. The word ethics is a taboo now. And I believe both sex and ethics are very good words and should be taught in the right perspective. What are we saying? What did Harshvardhanji say? Or what did all the concerned parents say? We have to teach them sex education, but under the context of value education and ethical education. It should be in a subtext of life education and health education that the idea of sex education should be introduced. And
Rahul
what is sex
Ishwaran,
after all? What do you teach in sex?
You for
it is
just
being
a second.
responsible sexual
I'm going
behavior
to interrupt you
that
for
is
just a
inside the
second.
family
I'm just going to interrupt you for just a second. I think Dr. Nagpal gave a gist of what sex education actually consists of in our schools. It's a holistic approach. It tells you about good touch, bad touch. It tells you what contraceptives you can use.
But we are only saying...
Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with that being taught to our kids?
Just one more line. Like Anubhaji Right said, it tells you what contraceptive is, it tells you what condom is, it tells you what safe sex is. Please tell them what is ethical relationship is. Please tell them what values are. Please teach them what culture is. What is the problem with also introducing family values and ethical education to it? This is a limited point. And look at the people, look at our youngsters. Why can't we teach them things like value education or family education? What is wrong in inspiring values in them? Sex education, nobody is against sex education, but we are only telling it should have an ethical framework to it. There is a value education associated with it. And if you look at experiences world over, unless sex education is supplemented and complemented by value education and ethical education, it is going to have a disastrous effect. We are only saying there should be value education associated with the whole idea, and the idea of family value should be there. What is wrong in it?
Okay, I don't think anyone's saying that you're wrong. It's just a question to you, Rahul Easwaran, and I'll get in Bashiruddin Saab as well before I get Anjali to respond to that. Would you also go with Rahul Easwaran's view that there needs to be sex education, but perhaps with some kind of an ethical framework?
Madam, first of all, I would like to correct you. My name is Khaliq Ahmed. Sharqi was our ex-president.
I'm sorry.
Anyways, what we think is, okay, no problem. Anyways, what we think is education, you know, it's somewhat a broader concept. Like if you take the issue of what education you are imparting, then you must have some considerations. What are you going to educate? How are you going to educate? Then psychological considerations. Then, you know, age group considerations, etc. So if these things are kept in, you know, complete format, like other panelists have also mentioned,
right.
If these things are considered in, you know, in pluralistic way,
okay.
Like everyone has its own voice,
right.
But morality, ethics, and especially we must see that how our education is going to affect the family structure, how our education is going to affect, you know, what are the problems which we are facing upon.
Sir,
so
can I ask you that question? Can I just ask you a simple question? Are you equating condoms with morality? I mean, somehow this debate has got confused. AIDS prevention, condoms is sort of associated with morality.
Ma'am, morality is something which is infused in us. Like what are the moral behavior which we would like to inculcate in our next generation? What are the moral behaviors which we would like to inculcate to, you know, to save our family structure? After all, our society is, you know, sensitive towards all these things.
Would you be averse?
So
would you be averse if students in schools are actually taught about contraceptives as a method to avoiding pregnancy, as a method to save sex? Would you be averse to that?
That only I am saying, you know, ma'am, what actually are you trying to impart them? Like contraception,
what
or,
are we trying to impart?
Condoms,
no,
or
explain
sexual,
to us, what are we trying to impart? In your view, what are we trying to impart?
Like some documentation which I have,
okay,
which SIO has taken a stand upon. In addition, it teaches the student the method of using condom, homosexuality. The program says it's not abnormal, and it says that it is personal preference of individual and should not be viewed as negative. Like in, you know, in other discussion it said, under the program student will be trained to freely discuss sex and its related things with peers, teachers and parents. So if it is going to serve the purpose, if we are seeing that के इससे जो है कुछ जरूर तब्दीली आएगी जिसके लिए हम कंसर्न रखते हैं,
हाँ.
तो ये जो है अगर हम कंसर्न रखते हैं, अगर ये वाकई में इम्पार्ट कर रहा है और एसआईओ ये फील करती है कि ऐसी चीजें अगर इतना ज्यादा ओपन हो जाए,
हाँ.
जो पेरेंट्स के जरिए होनी चाहिए थी, which was actually to be imparted by parents, then psychological counseling, then you know, overall societal.
I get the drift of what you're saying. But Anjali, I want you to come in because I don't know how somehow this debate of condoms in many people's minds has come to be associated with morality. You know, but I just want you to ponder a little bit on Dr. Harshvardhan's argument, where he said that the supremacy of fidelity as an AIDS prevention measure is not only a piece of cultural advice, but it's actually backed by scientific evidence as well.
Well, I'm not, you know, much as Rahul wants to believe, just much as Rahul wants to believe that I am against ethics and values and morality.
True.
Let me put his mind at rest. I'm not. But I definitely will tell you the reality at the ground level is very different. I'm not saying I want people to have multiple sexual partners. All I'm saying is, if you do have multiple sexual partners, please do not get infections back home. And the only way to do that is this highly preventable disease, which is HIV, can be prevented by using condoms. Now, what's wrong with that? Now, somehow I think in our minds, we are so conflicted and so scared of the reality of what is actually happening in our country, and therefore we're trying to hide all of this. And I think as a culture, with due apologies, Rahul, I think all of us, including you and me, live two lives, because that's what we've been taught. One for society and one for ourselves.
Okay, Onir, you know, I want to just bring you into this discussion. You know, safe sex as a holistic concept that actually gives in some amount of emphasis to fidelity. Surely that's not completely out of our culture.
Yeah, first of all, you know, I have this big question of what is our culture. Do we talk of post-independence era, the British, you know, colonial time, or we go back to the pre-Mughal time or the pre-Brahminical time? Because what Rahul is forgetting, that, you know, when we are talking that, oh, now this country is talking about sex as a center, is that we are also the land of Kama Sutra, and that was in a way sex education. And when one is talking of sex education, one of the most important things, you know, what we are trying to deny acknowledging is the fact that such a large number of our children face sexual abuse all the time.
Right.
So sex education is in a way empowering these children to protect themselves. And this is not about sex education in school. Is very, very important for this, because most of, you know, when we are talking of this should be done at home, mostly abuse happens at home and nobody talks about it. School is a place where actually this knowledge of what is a good touch, what is a bad touch, and I feel by denying our children, you know, the fact or the knowledge about sex, we are actually not acknowledging the fact that so many children still get married at, you know, age 14 or so without any knowledge about their bodies, get violated. Absolutely. You know, and I think it's absolutely cruel. We don't care about our kids if we do not arm them to protect
themselves. With this information, yes, absolutely, to protect themselves. Let me get in one very important stakeholder who I haven't gone to throughout this entire debate, Onika Mehrotra. She's a principal of the school. Onika, I have a stack of questions for you, but I want to start by saying, how do children actually accept sex education? Are they giggling through it? Are your teachers actually comfortable imparting this sex education?
That's exactly the point lies here. Dr. Harshvardhan taking a U-turn on this issue shows the seriousness and where best can it be taught but in school. You see, that's where it's a connectivity of the parent, the child and the teacher.
Okay.
You know, you can't separate them. And that's where they're in a comfort zone, they can share things. They are nuclear families wherein children cannot discuss certain factors with their parents, and at times get wrong information from the friends. So yes, the teachers who are an expert in their fields, who are also orientated, they are into in-service teachers performing, and then they interact with the students. Yes, being a coordinator school, it is vital. When you teach biology, you teach physics, chemistry, it's part and parcel of the same curriculum, and gradually you make an interface into the teaching holistic approach to the child.
Okay.
So I think it's very vital.
It's very vital. Onika, I want you to respond to some of the concerns that people like Rahul Ishwaran have and our other representative about really the wrong message going in, that sex education is somehow going to be equated with promiscuity. Sex education means irresponsible behavior. Sex education means more sexual activity.
I think the word sex itself, is a distorted kind of impression that we carry. The moment we use the word sex, I think all sorts of concepts come in. It's nothing beyond teaching the growth of a child, how the hormonal change that comes to the child, so on and so forth. In the younger, vulnerable age, they're traveling, they are into the different classes, they go for swimming, there's so many things where the child learns while growing. And this is where the school pitches in and teaches the right way in a very comfortable and a casual manner, wherein you are not put into bracket that you're being taught sex education.
Onika, I just want to press on the efficacy, because, when we speak to students and teachers, many of them feel that they themselves have not been armed with the best information, perhaps the best way to give this information. Do you ever get a sense of that? And is there a difference between a child who's received sex education and someone who's not? What would be a change that you would see as a principal, as an academic?
Absolutely right, I agree on that. Yes, the urban and the rural belt and so on and so forth, there will be the difficulty in actually getting across certain things, but things have changed. Even people, get information on net or various other sources. So I think the teachers should go in for an orientation program or a training program, or experts with the psychologists clubbed together, and that's how it could be taught in a perfect manner. But yes, there are teachers who at times do feel uncomfortable, but that's part and parcel of the whole process. But while you're at it and you have experts on it, it's a channel and it's a way it should be in the schools, so that you have stringent laws on sex, you have stringent laws on rape, so much is happening around. And this is at a vulnerable age, teaching them the right things, wherein the do's and the don'ts. And it's up to the child later on in life to adapt certain things.
Absolutely. And let me take that point to Rahul Ishwaran. Rahul, I think there is a view among a section, and I'm not just pointing towards you, that perhaps sex education needs to be sugar-coated a little bit. But this is the age of mass media, this is the age of internet, this is the information age, it's the communication age. Surely children are picking up these signals from many other places, and why should they not get an informed opinion from their schools, from their teachers?
Exactly, an informed opinion. Like even Anjali ji said or O'Neill said, there is a difference between good touch and bad touch. In the same way, there is a difference between good behavior and bad behavior. All we are telling is combine sex education plus value education. You can call it ethical education or life education or health education, and you should realistically understand that millions of parents who don't belong to the classification of liberals, as you call it, have inhibitions in it. So teach them or convince them to, but when you give to students, please don't sugarcoat. It is not like sugarcoating, but it is communicating with the right words, like the doctor earlier said, the right nomenclature, the right vocabulary to use for it.
So you should be happy. You should be happy because
and the only minimum demand from people like us is, why don't we also include value, family and ethical perspective to it?
You should be happy then, Rahul Ishwaran, you should be happy because Dr. Nagpal actually laid out that nomenclature, laid out that roadmap, laid out that framework that has all of this. So you should be happy today that sex education is nearly taught the way you are suggesting it should be taught. Or do you believe it has to be taught under the banner of moral education?
No, I don't see. There are some words which get discredited over time. For example, the word moral and morality is no longer in vogue. You can discard that word altogether. You can even use words like ethical education, but the perspective of family and the relationships fidelity, these ideas should be inspired in people's mind. Otherwise, there are every chance, like America or UK, we have high teenage pregnancies, people going out of control of the family system. These are natural concerns of crores of human beings who are still inside India. So please understand that. Be sensitive to their ethical concerns, which are very genuine.
Absolutely. Dr. Nagpal, do you want to come in and respond to this one? Does that make anyone uncomfortable? Sex education, cultural values really in the same line?
I think it's been a very interesting discussion, and all credit to Rahul for actually helping us to understand what we are trying to all share together and the same language and the same emotion. I think life skills education, values and health and well-being are not sugar-coated. Exactly. They are the actual facts of life which inevitably will lead to the byproduct of healthy sexuality and healthy morality also. I think we are actually discussing the same point, but there is a convergence between morality and sexuality because it lies between a subjective sense of well-being. So what you choose for yourself, as Madam said earlier, is your subjective choice in life, but that doesn't deny the possibility of a policy and a program at the school level with absolute connectivity coming together between the family, the school and the teachers to promulgate a program with a lot of integration of values, life skills and school health and well-being. I think that's a beautiful outcome of something which will lead to a very responsible, healthy sexual behavior and not fall prey to disorders and diseases, what we have been discussing.
Responsible, healthy sexual behavior. Anjali Gopalan, if it's also beautiful and stitching up together, then what's the problem? Why did Dr. Harshvardhan need to come out with this clarification saying the so-called sex education of the UPA Times really is no sex education? Dr. Nagpal seems to be suggesting that the framework is perfect at the moment.
No, listen, I think the very fact that we're still so uncomfortable talking about sex education, we want to use it in the garb of life skill education. We don't want to talk openly about consequences of behaviors. We don't want to talk openly about sexuality because it makes us so uncomfortable. What is it? Why does it become such a moral issue? Why is it that we don't understand the moment you bring morality into this debate, most people's minds completely block information? I mean, come on, Dr. Nagpal, let's get real about this. You know what the reality is. You know the number of young girls who are terminating unwanted pregnancies in this country of ours. What are we talking about, America and UK? So why are we so nervous about talking about sex education the way it should be spoken about? Not hiding behind the whole, you know, this whole debate about we must be moral and our family values and we must talk about family.
Right. Dr. Nagpal, go ahead.
Yeah. See, I think you got it a little wrong from my side. In fact, I'm a strong advocate of sex education. What I'm saying is that I'll come back to the beginning statement that we need to depart from the very microscopic, telescopic opinion about sex education as an act of sex to the larger macro opinion about integrating life, family life and responsible healthy sexual behavior without hiding away the nomenclature. Without hiding away the nomenclature about the consequences. I completely appreciate your concern about the child sexual abuse, we being on the world map today, we being on the world map of teenage pregnancies, we being on the world map of, say, child marriage, and we being in the world map of anemia, urban anemia in girls related to the amount of
Dr. Nagpal, I think you made your Dr. Nagpal, let me toss that back.
All this.
Let me toss that back to Anjali. Let me toss that back to Anjali. What would make what do you believe? How should we put out sex education really out there? What should we be saying? What should be the nomenclature? What should be our language?
I think we need to talk openly about sexuality. I think we need to talk openly about what puts us at risk and what doesn't. I think we need to talk openly about consequences of behavior and understanding it. I think we need to talk openly about condom use, something that Rahul is totally against, because we have to teach our young to protect themselves. We have to talk about contraception.
You know, I think Rahul sneaked in that two words, say condom, not, don't say condom, say culture.
One line. The way to stop teenage pregnancy is not condom but culture, not contraceptives but values.
Rahul, we've lost the plot on that one, my friend. We have lost the plot on that
one. Let Rahul just say, then I'll come back to you. Say, go ahead, Rahul.
Yeah.
You don't have to bring in teaching children to use condoms.
We should have a multi-dimensional approach.
I will not agree
and
with
the way
that.
to stop teenage pregnancies is not only condoms, but we should also promote culture. Not only contraceptives, but we should also inspire values. And the whole idea of having no family values or ethical values is an issue. And one more thing, she is shying away from even taking the word ethics. Anjali Gopalan is not even taking, she believes the word ethics is something like a taboo. That approach is also not right. So that is one extreme approach. The other extreme approach being, you should not talk about sex. So we should talk about sex and ethics together.
Okay, you should talk about both, and I don't think Anjali was making that point, but I just want to give in one word to the two representatives. I think Dr. Nagpal sneaked in a small line. He said that he perhaps wouldn't be comfortable, Dr. Nagpal, if I've got it right, I think you were trying to say that perhaps we just can't go openly in a classroom and say, here's how you need to use a condom.
You don't have to teach about how to use condoms to kids. I think that is not required at all.
Right.
Why not?
You have to talk about responsible sexual behavior, and that's a...
Are you saying yes? And part of responsible sexual behavior is learning how to use a condom correctly.
It's not about...
So that you do not...
You don't have to get condoms to the classroom to teach them. You don't have to get condoms to the classroom to teach them how to use them.
Why not?
I hope you're not implying that.
I think those are two differing
No,
opinions.
That is enough.
Where else will they learn? Where else will they learn?
I think, Dr. Nagpal, I think there's a clear difference of view. Anjali Gopalan seems to be suggesting you need to tell them how to wear a condom. You're saying you don't need to be that explicit. You don't need to really go out that much.
Let's have more public opinion on this.
Okay. Let me just get in two voices who are in a sense very important stakeholders.
A simple example of condoms being put in the...
Dr. Nagpal, I'll just ask you to pause for a bit. I just want to get in Onika here. What would you be more comfortable with as a school principal? Anjali Gopalan's view or what Dr. Nagpal is saying?
See, as you rightly said, little knowledge is dangerous. So if you're going to put in bits and pieces, you will stand nowhere.
Okay.
You have to, work on it, talk about it, and be open about it. Does teaching to wear a condom, does it mean that you're going to use it? Why are you taking it in a different manner?
Okay.
It's a part and parcel of your education. Please do it in an integrated manner so that it is not hushed up or neither it is blown out of proportion.
Okay, so
Please.
It
is a holistic approach of an education.
Okay, so that's a view actually coming in from a principal saying that yes, teach my students how to wear a condom. Let me get in a quick word from Lata,
don't
who's a
take it
representative.
literally.
I'm
Don't
not
take
saying
it literally, please.
No, I'm not saying it
what I'm
literally.
trying
It's a
to say
response
is
to a question.
little knowledge is
Onika.
dangerous.
It's a response to a question. I think.
Yeah, because I need to
one of the
clarify this
reasons
from the
is one
principal.
of just one second.
Because this is the reason why the whole program was banned in 2007.
You have to synchronize. See, you have to synchronize the whole
get
thing
real, everyone.
properly. I mean, you just can't pick up one word of condom or bring that in the classroom. I mean, there's a way of doing it and telling certain things.
Okay, let me give it the final word.
There's a process.
Ladies,
I'll have PowerPoint presentation.
Let me give
of various other ways.
Okay, let me give in the final word to Lata, who's a representative of the parent side as well as the teacher side. From all that you've heard so far, do you believe sex education is something that the parents are going to be completely comfortable with all the nomenclature that you've heard today?
Parents have to be made, they have to be comfortable with their child, because from what we have been seeing, especially with the different media and the computers, you need to talk to the child. Apart from that, even in the schools, you need to have sex education. We are just not talking about condoms, and we are not talking about any other ways of abstaining from this, but then you need to talk about what are we talking about when we say sex education.
What are we talking
We are not just talking about how to go about and have sex. I mean, it's just not the anatomy. It is just that we have to have psychological, physical, all sorts of relevant points come into just sex education. From what I have heard here, it's only everybody is talking about the physical point.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing emotional. What happens then?
Dr. Nagpal made that very important point earlier when he laid out that framework, where he actually said the many things that actually consist of sex education. Onir, you really haven't had a chance to speak in this debate, but I'll give you the final word. This is the big elephant in the room, really, isn't it? Because we've also been a nation, in a sense, in denial about this three-letter word.
I find that what's the most disturbing fact is that why is sex such a dirty word? Just like when a child is small, you teach a child how to walk, holding hands, they learn how to eat, and at a certain age when the sexuality, he develops, he or she certain sexuality, at school they teach you how to deal with it, to learn about it, and right from wearing condoms, whatever. Why is suddenly we so paranoid about sex, which is just a very natural part, like the food we eat, air we breathe, and we learn about everything, and similarly we learn about sex.
Right. The food we eat, we learn how to walk. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have to end this debate here. Needless to say that clarification from Dr. Harshvardhan hasn't eased matters, and I think we go back to our talking point that sex education still is kind of a taboo when it comes to our schools. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us here on this India at 9 talking point. We'll have to take a quick break. We'll come back with a little bit extra on India at 9. Welcome back. If you stayed on here on India at 9 after all that talk about sex, we need to leave you with something special. We all need music in our lives. We all need RD, remembering him on his 75th birthday. Here's a tribute. Have a great weekend ahead.
ये जवानी है दीवानी, मेरी रानी रुक जाओ रानी, देख जरा पीछे मुड़ के, चली कहाँ ऐसे उड़ के, एंड गिली गिली अक्का, गिली गिली अक्का, गिली गिली अक्का, पिली 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 तारा 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 ऐसे क्यों रूठना, दीवानों का काम है, देखो दबा दबा बातें मुलाकातें कहने की शाम है, ऐसे में क्यों रूठना, दीवानों का काम है, ये जवानी